Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen, and we've been doing a short little series on the 2018 Canadian budget because we don't want to do it all in one. It would be like 2 hours of just really boring stuff, but we're sprucing it up a bit and bringing some more information into it so you can understand what's going on in the 2018 Canadian budget. And in this part, we're going to talk about bond buybacks. So of course that's a lot of fun, but hey, look, we need to know about this stuff. It's very important because we need to know how our money is being stolen and redistributed to crazy and insane banks and countries around the world and into the weapons of war and massacring innocent people overseas, and at the same time as censoring journalists, etc. We're going to go into all of that in the future because there's a lot of interesting stuff in the 2018 Canadian budget, nicknamed something along the lines of equality and growth, but not equal opportunity, just equal results, according to our government in Canada. So, John, going into this, the bond buyback situation, what does the budget say? What should we expect?
Well, the budgets say that they're going to continue their program between 2018 to 2019. So they're going to continue what they've been doing already. Now, there's hard to get exact numbers on what the buybacks have been, but I can only make assumptions by looking at the bank's balance sheet, and I'm just looking at one of their documents from 2012 that says bond buyback operations as of April 2012, and it talks about eligible bonds. And what it says, the bond buyback program targets both illiquid high coupon bonds and certain large off-the-run issues, including their fungible counterparts. It sounds like very crazy and it's hard to understand. But,
total jargon.
Yeah, but illiquid bonds is basically the bonds that the government is having issues to actually be good on the bond, so they can't pay the principal of the bond, so they need to roll it over. And then, of course, the central bank, Bank of Canada, comes in and buys that bond again. So now they hold it and they get the interest from the bank. But that's a way of stopping the Canadian government from going bankrupt. And it's very interesting how it works. Now, if you go and look at their current balance sheet from January 31st, 2018, you can actually go and see at loans and receivables. You can see the securities purchased under resale agreement. So it's $8.79 billion.
Wait. What does that mean?
The resale is basically them buying the bonds again. So that's what's happening there. It's almost $9 billion. Then the Bank of Canada actually holds $83.6 billion in bonds currently. So that is a substantial amount. And if we go and look at the central bank balance sheet, you can see since 2008, there's been a massive buy-up to prop up the market. And then there was a little bit of a sell-off in the bonds, but they just have been continuing after that to buy more and more assets from the banks that, are bad assets that would have been, defaulted on. And that's what they keep on accumulating. So anybody accumulating things that would be basically bankrupt, and especially the government, who wants to buy anything from the government and think that they actually would pay you back. It's one of the worst investments in the world, in my point of view, to invest. It's been housed as the best investment in the world. Well, when it comes to governments are never going to be good on any of their investments, and they're never going to ever pay back their debt. We've just seen a mass racking up of debt now. We've seen it all throughout history here in Canada and all over the world. Everybody's getting into debt because of the system is getting so bad that we're staying on kind of stagnant, slow incremental growth in wages. But then the problem is we having so much more debt accumulated on top of that.
And so much more in inflation. And of course, debt is a big part. I mean, the bond market is one of the worst things you can get into, other than maybe treasuries or something like that in the US. And just it's totally insanity, but it all comes down to that debt, because if you're shoved down a bottomless pit of debt, you are forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, which puts you in perfect servitude exactly where they want you. And looking at how people are attacked from all ends in Canada, Canada through vast amounts of taxation, massive amounts of regulations, the hidden tax of inflation. It's hitting you from all ends, and Canadians can't afford to practically put any food on their table anymore and heat their home at the same time during the winter. It's gone to this point of no return, and it's absolutely insane, and it has to come down. All fiat currencies eventually revert to their intrinsic value of zero. They always have, always will, going back to 1024 AD in China, and all these manipulated markets have to come down as well, and they will. The fundamentals are off the table due to the level of manipulation in the monetary system and the market, so you can't put a date on it, but we know it's going to happen, which is why it's so important to be prepared. But John, I want you to go into how this is going to affect the average Canadian with his bond buyback situation.
Well, how it's going to affect them? It was interesting. Recently, we had somebody commenting on our bank video. We were talking about how banks were insolvent, cash versus deposit ratios, and he said we have zero clue about what bank does and how they actually can stay liquid by buying short-term debt in the treasury markets. Well, in the first place, that's a terrible investment. What if I said to him, what if suddenly your idea of the safe haven of debt to buy debt in the first place in order to keep liquid and selling that debt off in order to raise more cash to your depositors, what if people didn't want to take those treasures anymore and say, like, we don't want this bankrupt, this overinflated value debt that you guys have been telling us that had value, but we don't believe in it anymore? Well, then the whole system is coming crashing down, and the banks are not willing to understand this. They just believe that we are stupid because they're saying, oh yeah, the banks are crazy bad even for having cash in their under deposits, that they're not managing it, they're investing it everywhere else, making money for you. Well, the thing is, they're not supposed, like, banking in the first place is not supposed to invest money anywhere in order to grow your money really fast. That is the problem. Yeah, there was savings and loans, you put your money in and then you get a little bit back, but the problem is now a lot of places there's negative interest rates, so they're actually charging you to steal your money in the first place, to borrow it and invest it in a whole bunch of other terrible investments. So it's just like insane where the banks are taking us, especially with this bond buyback program, all this terrible debt that it's never going to get paid back. That's why you have this process in the first place.
Yeah, well, and I mean, with the treasuries, who's buying treasuries? I mean, it's insane. Like, haven't we seen like central banks basically buying them themselves? I mean, their own treasuries?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what's been going on with quantitative easing, as they call it, or Operation Twist, whatever they want to call it. You saw that they've been buying, the U.S. have been buying mass amounts. They'd stopped recently. I see they using other subsidiaries. We saw suddenly Belgium like buying $300-something billion worth of U.S. bonds. Came out of nowhere.
Certain trade deals and stuff like that, it comes with the territory. It's like, if we do this, you have to do that. And it's like, well, we don't want that. Well, if you want this, great or evil, etc.
Yeah, well, we're going to come to a point where all these bonds that they're buying back, whatever they're doing with them, they're going to have to sell it onto the market, and who's going to buy them anymore? First of all, you're seeing liquidation of bonds all around the world, from China and a whole bunch of other countries that are trying to get away from the US dollar and away from US debt because it's so unsustainable. Nobody's going to ever pay back. And it's the same with Canada and every other country on this planet that have government bonds. All these governments are never going to ever pay them back, and they're all bankrupt. And it's just at one point, suddenly people are not going to trust it anymore, and it's game over for the banks and the big governments of running the system.
Yeah, and these big governments, these coercive collectives of the majority enforcing its will on the minority, and in Canada's case, it's a bit different than that. It's actually the minority enforcing its will on the majority, where we have, Trudeau won with 38% or something like that. It's totally insane. But anyway, stealing a bunch of people's money and then giving it to countries overseas, and then completely bankrupting the people in the country. Middle class is being destroyed, and it's just gotten out of control.
I think what we need to do in Canada is we need to let's just bypass the government at all, and let's just borrow all the money to Trudeau, because he's very good at balances his books. That's what he's saying. The books will balance themselves. So I think we should get Trudeau in place here, have him balance the book, because apparently to him, actually in his system that he's invented, they can balance themselves. So I'm very excited about that. We should just borrow directly to Trudeau and have him run the economy instead of
magic.
as a totalitarian leader.
It's like, yeah, let's steal a bunch of people's money and then just give it to massive, regular big complexes, give it to countries across the world, give it to, the military industrial complex, etc. But then like have no way of paying it back. Oh, well, we'll wave a magic wand and it'll all just, solve itself. Yeah, let's print a whole bunch of currency. Let's be Zimbabwe 2.0 or 3.0 at this point. God. There's been a billion Zimbabwe's. Anyway, so it will continue to cover this issue as we are taxed to death, as we are pushed into poverty here in Canada. It's not being reported enough. Not enough people are talking about how our money's being stolen and then spent on insane things, and with no way of paying it back. It's insane. So we need to keep breaking down these issues. We need to keep calling out the markets that are overly manipulated, the fiat system that's completely printed out of thin air, creating debt, just massive amounts of inflation, causing all these problems. We need to keep calling it out because there's almost no one in Canada that's actually talking about these issues. And it's about time that we start spreading that word more far and wide, because we are all being affected by this. In the end, it comes down to that that single mother who's paying for 3 children or something and can't afford to pay for her family, can't put food on the table, and is being taxed to death at the same time. I know, because I have family members that are making very little money, working really hard, because in the end the inflation's so hard that the price of living's gone way up. They can't afford what families could afford 30, 40, 50 years ago, and are forced to basically buy the cheapest, most unhealthy food possible, and unable to pay the rent, and then on top of that getting taxed to death and getting money stolen from them to pay for people who have more money than them. It's just insane. It's gotten to the point of no return, and we need a debt jubilee. We need this whole thing to come down before we can build it up from a free monetary, free market level once again, as free markets are far more efficient, and anything the government does, the free markets can do better. Let's get out of this manipulated market system. Let's get out of this manipulated monetary system and start building things up as independent individuals, free of government coercion, free of bankster control. John, final word?
Yeah, you said debt jubilee. I think we should have a government jubilee as well. Get rid of them.
Yeah, that would be great. Oh man, let's do that. We probably will in the next few years as this continues to heat up. But we'll continue to break down the 2018 budget. Please stay tuned and spread this far and wide. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here at WAM, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored by YouTube, as the ADL comes in and flags all of our content as hate speech. You can also find our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan, if you please. And don't forget to find us at Josh Sigurdson at steemit.com. That's steemit.com, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency, Steem that is. So don't forget to find us there. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.